Kamala Harris gets called out for plagiarizing a speech from Martin Luther King Jr., so we'll talk a bit about what's going on there. Tom Cotton says that he is not going to go along with the plan to decertify the election results, and we'll talk a bit about that and the fact that Democrats used to do the exact same thing. In other news, the first case of the UK strain that is much, much more transmissible has hit New York, and Andrew Cuomo talks about that a little bit. And Cosmopolitan promotes obesity, and all of the internet goes nuts. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. I'm probably going to have to change some microphone settings here in the near future because, it's starting to seem like this setup is starting to go just a little bit bad. But, getting a couple years out of it, I'm not going to complain about that at all either. But, yeah, we're starting to have a couple problems here in the system. But, somewhere in the near future, the new computer is going to be coming up. I've actually got a plan for this, and a much lower price than I thought, so that's going to start happening here. We're going to hopefully see some better quality coming out of this, but up until then, the news stops for nobody, and we've got a bunch of it to cover, plus Twitter trending up at the end of the show. But before we get started, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs, covering great shows such as The Generational Gap, The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The Freckles and Brit Show, and The R-Rated Conservative. Come on over there, pick up some of our swag, and help us support great creators. All right, looking in at the stock, starting with the Dow, which is going to reload, but it went down. The Dow slid probably 0.67% yesterday on its first day of 2021 trading, and that is because everybody is looking out at the Georgia Senate runoffs and what that's going to mean for the government. I've got some theories about that, but it did slide. And we had a very, very small slide, nothing like what we saw out of the Dow here, coming out of Bitcoin, where Bitcoin is also down to 31,677 for the day. So watch your Bitcoin. People are going to start selling off because they made a butt ton of money off of Bitcoin here. So they're going to sell it off and hope that they can retire off of it, or at least get a few years out of things as the lockdown comes in and people look at the fact that their greed is going to take them the way that they want to go. We'll see what the investors have to say on that, though. Starting with Investors Business Daily. Dow Futures stock market rally eyes Georgia Senate runoff elections as Apple, Microsoft carved new buy points from Ed Carson. Dow Jones Futures fell slightly Tuesday morning, along with S&P 500 Futures and NASDAQ Futures, with Georgia Senate runoff elections in focus. The stock market rally faced a test to start the 2021, with the Dow Jones, S&P 500 Index, and NASDAQ Composite all undercutting a key level Monday but closing above it. It wasn't clear what spurred Monday's sell-off, tax selling in the new year, new coronavirus cases and shutdowns, as well as Tuesday's Georgia Senate runoffs, which will decide who controls the U.S. Senate, may have played a role. Tesla stock popped into a new high Monday, while China rivals NIO, XPeng Motors, Li Auto, and BYD rose strongly. All gained on strong sales over the weekend. The exception is BYD Company, which reported strong December sales early Tuesday. EV stocks lost some ground early Tuesday. Chip stocks tried to rally on Monday, but aside from Taiwan Semiconductor, most erased their morning gains. Software leaders extended losses, with Shopify round-tripping a double-digit gain. High-flying IPOs continued to come back to earth, with QuantumScape crashing and Fubo continuing to plunge. Finally, the mega-cap stocks sold off, including Apple stock, Microsoft, and Amazon. Apple is still close to record highs, while Microsoft and Amazon fell to their 50-day lines. All could be close to forming handles that would offer a lower buy point. This question is whether Monday's slide is a temporary shakeout or the beginning of a long retreat. That's the question for a broader stock market rally too. Tesla, Apple, Microsoft, and TSM are on the IBD leaderboard. Microsoft stock is on IBD long-term leaders. Taiwan Semiconductor is on IBD 50. Dow Jones Futures fell 0.2% versus fair value, shifting between slim gains and losses. S&P 500 futures lost 0.2%. NASDAQ 100 futures dipped 0.3%. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. All right, let's move on. And CNN had an article out last night when I was setting it up talking about what happened with the slide yesterday. So let's see what they have to say about this. Dow tumbles on first trading day of 2021 from Anakin Tape. Wait, there are actually people named Anakin? Oh, and it's a chick too on top of it, I think. Yeah. We could speculate about that all day. It was a rocky first day of trading of the year for Wall Street as stocks fell sharply and investors grew worried about the pandemic and economic recovery of 2021. I don't think there's going to be one, guys. I think that we're fucked. Investors took profits off the market's record highs set last week, and they took a more cautious position ahead of the high-stakes runoff election in Georgia Tuesday, which will decide the balance of the Senate, analysts said. Yes, that's today, guys. Wall Street had started the day in the green, putting stocks on track to start the new year off with a bang. The Dow Industrial Average and the S&P 500 finished at record highs on the last trading day of 2021, but trading quickly turned south. The Dow closed 1.3% or 383 points lower, while the S&P 500 tumbled 1.5%. The Nasdaq Composite also ended 1.5% lower. Coca-Cola and Boeing were the worst performers on the Dow after both companies were downgraded by analysts. Most S&P sectors, with the exception of energy, ended in the red. It might not be the start of the year we all wished for, but there is no reason to panic. Joe's gonna save us all! Despite some familiar issues, we believe that global stocks have further room to rise in 2021, and that low interest rates continue to make equity valuations look attractive relative to bonds and cash, said Mark Hayfield, Chief Investment Officer at UBS Global Wealth Management, in a note to clients. Meanwhile, the economic data released Monday wasn't too bad. America's manufacturing industry was strong at the end of 2020, and the IHS Market Purchasing Managers Index for the sector rose to its highest level since September of 2014. Construction spending for November came in just below economists' expectations. But it wasn't just stocks that tumbled on Monday. U.S. oil prices took a hit and settled 1.9% or 90 cents lower at $47.62 per barrel as investors await decisions in February production levels from OPEC nations and other petroleum-producing allies. Yep, we're going to be shutting off the spigot over here and probably going back to getting oil from our friends over to the east coming up off of this too. So that's something to watch and something to see as you plan for your 2021 and beyond under a Kamala Harris presidency. So there are a couple things to watch for this, a couple things to see, and we will see what comes back out of this and how this all goes. There's a lot to watch with this, and the Senate runoffs are going to be one of the things, and I'm sure we're going to be talking more about that tomorrow. But we will move on into the news, starting with the Daily Wire today. Big news off the day. Freedom. Kamala Harris' story about demanding civil rights as a toddler lifted from 1965 MLK Jr. interview. So it's not just Joe that plagiarizes, apparently, from John Brown. Evidence emerged Monday on Twitter that a story Senator Kamala Harris told Elle magazine in October about demanding civil rights from the time she was in a stroller was seemingly lifted from a similar story that Martin Luther King Jr. gave to Playboy in 1965. Senator Kamala Harris started her life's work young. Elle's glowing profile began. She laughs from her gut. Joe, why are you saying that we can when all we should be saying is we can? The way you would with family, as she remembers being wheeled through an Oakland, California civil rights march in a stroller with no straps with her parents and her uncle. At some point, she fell from the stroller. A few safety regulations existed for children's equipment back then, and the adults, caught up in the rapture of protest, just kept on marching. By the time they noticed little Kamala was gone and doubled back, she was understandably upset. How do you lose your small child in a civil rights rally? In California, if you did that shit today, you would never see your kid again. My mother tells a story about how I'm fussing, Harris says. And she's like, baby, what do you want? What do you need? And I just looked at her and I said, freedom. When the interview reemerged Monday on Twitter, McLean's contributing editor, Andre Domise, noted how closely Harris's childhood tale resembled a story King told Playboy more than half a century ago. During an interview with Alex Haley, King answered a question about the burdens of being the leader of the civil rights movement, describing his suffering for the cause. He referenced the inspiration he received from a little girl. I will never forget a moment in Birmingham when a white policeman accosted a little Negro girl, 7 or 8 years old, who was walking in a demonstration with her mother. What do you want? The policeman asked her gruffly, and the little girl looked at him straight in the eye and said, feed 'em. She couldn't even pronounce it, but she knew. It was beautiful. Many times, when I have been sorely trying situations, the memory of that little one has come to mind and has buoyed me. Harris has attempted before to profit politically from stories about her involvement with the civil rights movement, even using it as a weapon against her running mate Joe Biden during the Democratic primary. In June of 2019, Harris jabbed Biden for his opposition to forced integration of public schools through busing decades ago, referencing Biden's willingness to work with notoriously segregationist former Democrat Senators James O. Eastland of Mississippi and Herman Talmadge of Georgia. Harris said, it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. There was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools, and she was bused to school every day. That little girl was me, Harris added, whose campaign immediately tweeted ready-to-go childhood photo of her in pigtails, staring intensely into the camera. Yeah, that was a setup. That was a complete setup to get this picture off of there, to try and get her some sort of clout here because her ratings were abysmal. But of course, as I mentioned at the top of this article, it's not just Joe that plagiarizes things and hopes to get political clout from them. It is his running mate as well, so he has taught her well. Maybe when she goes to run for re-election, because Joe has long since died, we will hear the story of the hair that she has on her legs, and the kids in the pool that like to rub it down, and a real bad dude with a straight razor, and the summer that she learned about roaches. Maybe that's what we'll see from this, but we got to keep moving on here. Thought you guys would find that interesting. Moving on from CNN politics. 11 times VP Biden was interrupted during Trump's electoral vote certification from Brenna Williams. This came to me, and I'll give credit where credit is due, from my good friend and friend of the channel, Fritz, of Fritzcast. Put it in a group chat that we both participate in, and I looked at that and I said, I am seizing the means of production for my own program here. So we will see what is said from this. Vice President Joe Biden presided over a joint session of Congress Friday, where members officially tallied electoral votes from 2016. President-elect Donald Trump's 304 electoral votes weren't counted. Without incident, however, during the course of the certification, House Democrats tried to object to electoral votes from multiple states, with Biden gaveling them down for failure to follow the rules. Objections to the votes needed to be in writing and signed by both a member of the House and a member of the Senate. Every House member who rose to object did so without a senator's signature. 1:09 p.m. Eastern Time, Representative Jim McGovern of Massachusetts rose to object to the certificate from Alabama. The electors were not lawfully certified, especially given the confirmed and illegal activities engaged by the government of Russia, McGovern said. Biden denied McGovern on the grounds that he didn't have a senator's signature on his written objection. 1:14 p.m., Jamie Raskin of Maryland rose to object to 10 of Florida's 29 electoral votes. They violated Florida's prohibition against dual office holders, Raskin said. 1:15, no sooner than the Florida question had been settled, than its neighbor to the north was the subject of another objection when Washington's Rep. Pramila Jayapal objected to Georgia's vote certificate. It's over, Biden told the Congresswoman. Come on, man, it's over. 121, Barbara Lee of California brought up voting machines and Russian hacking when she objected following the counting of Michigan's votes. 123, after New York's tally was read, Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas stood up to object. I object on the massive voter suppression that included. 1:28 p.m., Arizona's Rep. Raul Grijalva rose to object after North Carolina's tally. 1:31, Jackson Lee made another appearance minutes later after South Carolina's certification. 1:36, Biden must have thought, after 5 minutes of peace and getting through the state of West Virginia, Mountain Mama, that the House members might observe the rules. Lee wasn't able to make it through her objection before Biden said, "There is no debate. Come on, man." They cut off her microphone again. 1:37, Wisconsin's votes had been read. With just Wyoming to go, the finish line was in reach. Jackson Lee once again tried to make an objection on the grounds of Russian interference. 1:38, the final state's votes had been read. Then entered California Rep. Maxine Waters. Taking a play from her own book, she objected to the certification of George W. Bush's 2000 election. Waters admitted that she didn't have a senator's signature on her objection. 1:40. The states were counted, but 3 protesters started yelling from the visitors' gallery of the chamber. At least one of them was reciting the Constitution as he was taken away by security, which was the last time somebody on the left read the Constitution. Biden did not look thrilled. So, objecting to the vote count is not a new thing, even though the media is trying to tell you that it was. And I'm very surprised this came from CNN. But of course, they want to take the ratings off of this too, because CNN has become the biggest transmitter of reality TV there is. But that's what we're seeing out of them. Let's keep going. From The Blaze. Resurfaced video, Democrats protested electoral votes after 2000-2004 elections, cited irregularities across this country with regard to voting. Stop text censorship. Stop censoring your own article so I can read it. Fuckers. From Dave Urbanski. The Blaze's Chris Enlow noted this weekend that while Democrats are rebuking Republicans for planning Wednesday to oppose the Electoral College certification of Joe Biden's presidential victory due to fraud concerns, Democrats themselves have a robust history of doing that very thing. And a damning resurfaced video underscores what's already on the public record. Okay for thee, but not for the GOP. The video compilation of clips from congressional sessions following the 2000 and 2004 presidential elections, both won by Republican George W. Bush. And in the clips, Democrats launched protests against Bush's electoral votes. In January of 2001, Democratic U.S. Rep. Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas spoke about the millions of Americans who have been disenfranchised by Florida's inaccurate vote count, a statement that draws jeers from her chamber. In January of 2005, U.S. Rep. Stephanie Tubbs Jones of Ohio told a joint session of Congress that the objection today is raised because there were irregularities across the country with regard to voting, and we, as a Congress, have an obligation to step up to the plate and correct them. Also, during the 2005 session, U.S. Rep. John Conyers of Michigan said, "We're here because not a single election official in Ohio has given us any explanation for the massive and widespread irregularity in the state. No explanation for the machines that recorded then Democratic presidential nominee John Kerry voters for Bush." That wasn't all, the Washington Post reported. During the January 2001 session, words such as fraud and disenfranchisement were heard above Republicans calling for regular order. Kind of wish they'd give me the video compilation. Oh, is this it? That is. Let's have a listen to that. That'd be cool. I think we'll enjoy this. Especially given the fact that we're probably going to see this tomorrow. Your ears are on.
The chair now hands to the tellers the certificate of the electors for President and Vice President of the state of Florida.
Mr. President, the objection is in writing, signed by a number of members of the House of Representatives, but not by a member of the Senate.
Mr. President, I stand for the purpose of objecting to the counting of the vote from the state of Florida as read.
Mr. President, I rise on behalf of the Congressional Black Caucus to object to the 25 electoral votes from Florida.
Mr. President, thank you for your inquiry. It is in writing. It is signed by myself on behalf of my diverse constituents and the millions of Americans who have been disenfranchised by Florida's inaccurate vote count.
Is the objection signed by a senator?
Well, Mr. President, I am objecting to the idea that votes in Florida were not counted.
The clerk will report the objection.
We, a member of the House of Representatives and a United States Senator, object to the counting of the electoral votes of the state of Ohio on the ground that they were not, under all of the known circumstances, regularly given. Signed, Stephanie Tubbs Jones, State of Ohio. Barbara Boxer, State of California.
The objection today is raised because there are irregularities across this country with regard to voting. And we as a Congress have an obligation to step up to the plate and correct them.
Mr. Speaker and members, I dedicate my objection to Ohio's electoral votes to Mr. Michael Moore, the producer of the documentary 9/11.
First of all, we're here because not a single election official in Ohio has given us any explanation for the massive and widespread.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot of that tomorrow. But remember, when the GOP does it, it's somehow completely evil. But when the Democrats do it, it's just business as normal. But prepare for a lot of that. And, I mean, this is probably going to be one of the first ones. I mean, they're all televised, which you can see by the C-SPAN 2 logo on the bottom of here. But I think this is going to be one of the first ones that's widely watched. So we will see what happens from that. Let's keep going. From Kentucky 3, or KY3 rather, out of Springfield, Missouri, Missouri Senator Josh Hawley tweets, Antifa attacked D.C. home. Group calls it a vigil for democracy. From Lexi Spivak, Missouri Senator Josh Hawley tweeted late Monday night that Antifa threatened his wife and newborn daughter at their home in Washington, D.C. Senator Hawley tweeted, Antifa scumbags came to our place in D.C. and threatened my wife and newborn daughter, who can't travel. He went on claiming the group screamed threats, vandalized, and tried to pound open the home's door. Let me be clear, my family and I will not be intimidated by left-wing violence, he said to end his tweet. A video from the organization Shut Down DC, the group that organized the protest, was shared to YouTube after it was live-streamed. The video is nearly 51 minutes long. It shows the group starting their protest at an area strip mall. They later walked to Hawley family's home. The group stood on the sidewalk and front lawn for the rest of the video. In the video, protesters are seen using megaphones to criticize Hawley's plan to delay the certification of the 2020 presidential election on Wednesday. Senator Hawley has been leading voice in that effort. Shut Down DC has responded to Hawley's claims Tuesday morning in numerous tweets. We visited Senator Hawley's house for around 30 minutes, one tweet began. We sang songs, chanted, and shared our stories. The tweet went on to say a small group of people delivered a copy of the Constitution to the home's front door. Well, maybe you should have fucking read it first. This is a developing story and will be updated as more information becomes available. Now, here's my question for you. If they actually did try to beat down the door, threaten the wife, shout threats, things like that, do you think they would release the live stream? Do you think they would put the live stream up? Or do you think the cameras would mysteriously be off before they committed trespass and property crime? I'm not big on this. Go to the politician's house. I understand, especially when they're bringing the wife and the kid into it. That's a step too far for me. But that's the point that people are getting, and the MAGA people do it just as much. Once the other members of the family who are innocent in all this, once they come into it, it becomes a hostage situation, and these people are terrorists. What actually happened there, we don't know. They're coming out and trying to say, it's a candlelight vigil. Well, it's not really a candlelight vigil if you're burning the house down, which they didn't do, but, you know, we've seen some of these tactics before, and we've seen what people did when they tried to battering ram the door down at Tucker Carlson's house while his wife and kid stood cowering in a pantry. What they did to the Turtles' house, what they've done to Nancy Pelosi's house. It's not that I'm saying that Antifa has done this, but they have a track record that I would believe that they've done this. You are innocent until proven guilty. But given the track record, I can speculate at least. So, and I'm not a juror or a judge at this point. So, definitely some stuff going on there. We will see what's happening from this developing story. From the National Review, Tom Cotton and Mike Lee reject plans to reject Electoral College votes from John McCormick. Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton and Utah Senator Mike Lee, two of the staunchest conservatives in the GOP Senate caucus, are rejecting proposals for Congress to reject the certification Electoral College votes on January 6th. Cotton said in a written statement published last night, "The founders entrusted our elections chiefly to the states, not Congress. They entrusted the election of our president to people acting through the Electoral College, not Congress. And they entrusted the adjudication of election disputes to the courts, not Congress. Under the Constitution and federal law, Congress's power is limited to counting electoral votes submitted by the states." Right, but if your constituents object, then you as the representative do have a job to do to object on their behalf. You see, you are a representative of your state and your district, and if your district does something different from what the rest of your state does, it is your job to object. And as we've seen further and further along, Democrats are not shy about doing the same objection. So, Cotton, you're wrong on this one. I don't think, even with there's an objection, I don't think it's going to change anything. That is one thing to keep in mind with this. I don't think it's going to change anything. But the people represented by the members of Congress have the right to have their voices heard by their representative. So, Cotton, on this one, piss off. All right, let's keep going here. From Deseret News, Stewart claims there's plenty of evidence to question election results. He and Burgess Owens, among more than 100 GOP leaders poised to challenge Biden's victory in what Mitt Romney calls an egregious ploy. And Mitt Romney continues to suck off the Democratic cock. From Dennis Romboy. Congress could be in for a long, contentious day on Wednesday. A dozen Republican senators and up to 100 House Republicans, which now include Utah Reps Chris Stewart and Burgess Owens, are poised to challenge the Electoral College vote when lawmakers convene in a joint session to confirm President-elect Biden's 306 to 232 win. Vice President Mike Pence will preside over the session, where the envelopes from each state and District of Columbia will be opened alphabetically and the votes tallied. If at least one member of each house objects in writing to the state's votes, senators will file out of the House chamber so the bodies can debate the issue separately for 2 hours. The process would be repeated for each state for which a challenge is raised. Could this go for, what would 100 hours be? 5 days? Could this go for 5 days? I think it could. I think it absolutely could. The objections are anticipated to start with Arizona and could continue to other swing states, including Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, where President Donald Trump lost. Both the Senate and House must vote to sustain the objection for it to hear the matter, and the Democratic-led House is unlikely to go along with any objections to votes for Biden. Otherwise, the votes get counted as certified by the states. There may be some twists and turns that they're not anticipating right now, said Chris Karpowitz, co-director of the Center for Study of Democracy and Elections at Brigham Young University. But he said there's not a majority in either chamber to sustain those objections, so this could just be a very long and divisive and frustrating process for all concerned. Stewart announced Monday that he will not vote to certify the election. After serious thought and consideration, I will not vote to certify the election. I believe there are critical questions that need to be answered concerning our presidential election, he posted on Twitter. Yes, and there have been for several elections in the past, including the 2016 election, including the 2012 election. There have probably been big questions in every election in my lifetime, going all the way back to 1984. But nobody wants to ask them. This is what we're supposed to be doing. Not just rolling over because the Electoral College and a few television networks said so. The only way we're supposed to roll over is if there's such a massive majority across the country that everybody just agrees with this. Like, a Reagan election. So, we will see what happens with that. From NBC4 out of D.C. D.C. National Guard to respond to pro-Trump protests this week. From NBC Washington staff and the Associated Press. Members of the D.C. National Guard will respond when supporters of President Trump protest the 2020 election results in downtown D.C. this week. And then they'll mysteriously disappear when the people wearing black handkerchiefs over their face show up. You see how that works? The D.C. National Guard will assist the Metropolitan Police Department with crowd management and traffic control. MPD's acting chief, Robert Conti, said at a news conference on Monday morning. The department is expecting a crowd larger than at 2 pro-Trump events in D.C. last year. Some of our intelligence certainly suggests there will be increased crowd sizes, said Conti, adding, there are people intent on coming to our city armed. A U.S. defense official said the D.C. National Guard members will not be armed or wearing body armor. Congress is meeting this week to certify the Electoral College results, and Trump has refused to concede while whipping up support for protests. Anyone who carries a gun at a protest or within 1,000 feet of a protest will be arrested, in line with D.C. law, the acting police chief said. Police posted signs this weekend in Freedom Plaza, where protests are expected, warning about the law. Law enforcement will work to maintain order at the demonstrations, Mayor Muriel Bowser said. We will not allow people to incite violence, intimidate our residents, or cause destruction in our city, she said. Really? Really? Because I have some fucking questions at this point, and they all go back to the St. George riots, where you did allow people to incite violence and intimidate your residents and cause destruction on your city. In fact, when the National Guard was called in order to push protests back away from the gates, you called it fascistic and dictatorial. But oh no, it's because it's Trump people now. Now it's because it's Trump people that you think that, okay, now we need to crack the whip. This is so blatantly and fucking nakedly partisan, it's not even funny. Officials will evaluate whether curfew will be needed, Bowser said. Police will increase their presence around churches after demonstrators were previously destroyed Black Lives Matter signs outside. In a message on Sunday, the mayor asked people to stay away from the demonstrations and downtown area. I'm asking Washingtonians and those who live in the region to stay out of the downtown area on Tuesday and Wednesday and not engage with demonstrators who come to our city, seeking confrontation. Opposite of the demonstrators that came to your city, seeking confrontation in June. And we will do what we must to ensure all who attend remain peaceful, Bowser said in a statement. Federal law bars guns from being carried on the U.S. Capitol grounds and in National Park Service areas such as Freedom Plaza and Ellipse and the National Mall. Bowser's office said on Sunday it's illegal to open carry firearms in D.C. and D.C. does not have reciprocity with other states' concealed pistol licenses. Whoops. Unless a person has been issued a concealed pistol license by the District of Columbia, which requires an act of God, they cannot conceal carry a firearm in the city, the mayor's office said. This is fucking ridiculous. And like I said, I wouldn't give a fuck about this if they'd have treated the St. George riots the same. I wouldn't give a fuck if they had treated this the same, but they didn't. By the way, thank you to Stephen Ignoramus for the diamond, some shekels for your efforts, and the 3 ice creams, and the lemon, Caught that out of the corner of my eye just now. Is that the only one? Yeah, it's the only one. All right. But that's what we're seeing off of this. Let's keep going. From, of course, This is from NPR, so we have to do our NPR voice off of this. Read it like this here. Trump gives a Medal of Freedom to loyalist GOP Congressman Nunes. From Brian Naylor. Remember, there's the donate button up there. NPR wants your money. They're not getting enough money from the federal government. They're not getting subsidized enough from your state and local government as well. So you must give them money because they need your money. They need to afford microphones that pick up very quiet sounds because they talk like this when they go. Let's see what Brian Naylor has to say. Representative Devin Nunes, who defended President Trump in the investigation into Russians' interference in the 2016 election, has been awarded the Medal of Freedom the White House announced on Monday. In announcing the award, the White House said Nunes helped unearth the crime of the century and thwart a plot to take down a sitting U.S. president, despite both being patently false. The award Nunes was criticized by the watchdog group, the Government Accountability Project. Representative Nunes abandoned the bipartisan tradition of whistleblower protection and chilled future whistleblowers from coming forward when they witness wrongdoing, Irvine McCullough, a national security analyst with the group, said in a statement. What do you think is going to happen to whistleblowers when they come forward against Kamala Harris? Because I bet you they're going to be on the front line against wildfires in California. Referring to the whistleblower who triggered the impeachment investigation of Trump, this isn't honorable, it's despicable, it's dangerous to award his misconduct. Oh, you have got a president-elect who sat in an administration that jailed journalists who said bad things about the president. And you want to talk about whistleblower protections? Fuck you. The White House said Nunes has the fortitude to take on the media, the FBI, the intelligence community, the Democrat Party, foreign spies, and the full power of the deep state. Devin had paid the price for his courage. The media smeared him, and liberal activists opened a frivolous and unjustified ethics investigation, dragging his name through the mud for 8 long months. It called Nunes a public servant of unmatched talent, unassailable integrity, and unwavering resolve. He uncovered the greatest scandal in American history, an apparent reference to baseless conspiratorial claims by Trump that the Obama administration and the FBI, among many others, plotted to tie the 2016 Trump campaign to Russia. Baseless. We've seen the fucking documents, you assholes. You National Public Radio fucking pricks. We've seen the documents. They're not baseless. It actually happened. I've read the documentation off of this. In fact, they're looking at a special counsel to go through and look at this, even through the Biden administration. But NPR is going to NPR, and remember that they need your money to make sure that your money goes to progressive causes, to make sure that they support the progressive presidential and lower candidates. So give them your money so they can launder it for you. Because they can get around somehow the donation cap. Give them your money, and they will give free advertising to their buddies in D.C. and your local government as well. All right, let's keep going from this one. From the Hill, Raffensberger demands Perdue apologize after wife got death threats following November call for resignation. From Justine Coleman. Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger demanded the former Senator Dave Perdue apologize to his wife on Monday after she received death threats following the senator's call for the secretary's resignation in November. Raffensperger called for an apology after the Fox News host Martha McCallum asked him to respond to Perdue calling it disgusting to have a conversation with President Trump recorded, which the Washington Post released on Sunday. Senator Perdue still owes my wife an apology for all the death threats she got after he asked for my resignation, he told Fox News' Your World, and I've not heard one peep from that man since. Yeah, leave the family out of it, dude. And dudes. And Perdue fans, leave the family out of it. And I totally disavow the death threats that you put against Raffensperger himself too, but for God's fucking sake, leave the family out of it. He wants to call me face-to-face, man-to-man. I will talk to him off the record, Raffensperger continued. No, he'll record it and release it to the Washington Post. But he hasn't done that. McCallum responded by saying that it feels like this is very much about a grudge between Georgia's Secretary of State and the senator. It's not a grudge at all, Raffensperger countered, adding, it's really about getting the facts out. Perdue, who is running for re-election in one of the two Georgia Senate runoff elections on Tuesday, responded to Raffensperger's apology request later Monday on Fox News' special report, telling host Brett Baer that the death threats from others were not related to his call for the Secretary of State to step down. And still, people, leave the families out of it, seriously. And I totally disavow you doing it to the actual people that are sitting in office too, but leave the families out of it. So, we will see what happens with that. Speaking of Raffensperger. I don't want this one here. We got to move this over here. That's the wrong article. This is the one that I want here from Axios. Progressives plot 11th hour Trump impeachment over Georgia call. From Alexei McAmmond and Steph W. Kite. President Trump may have little more than 2 weeks left in office, but House Democrats are talking about impeaching him again. The party is split over how to respond to his phone call asking the Georgia Secretary of State to change the state's vote totals. Yeah, go and listen to the whole conversation. That call was nothing like what the Washington Post put it out to be. It is in the Discord, by the way. It is about an hour and 6 minutes. Go and listen to it. Because those 4 minutes that WAPO put out were a complete bullshit fucking lie. And this is coming from people who accuse Project Veritas of doing the same. That is a complete bullshit lie, the article that you heard from WAPO. Selectively edited to make it seem like the truth. Progressives, including Ilhan Omar, are talking about another impeachment, while others, such as Hank Johnson, favor a lesser move like censure. The ticking clock factors into both approaches. Omar said Monday night that she wants to impeach the president because he and his allies have become more emboldened by not being held accountable. The Constitution does not make exceptions for the amount of time the president has left in office or the popular support they have, Omar wrote in a statement. And we cannot either. Fellow progressive rep Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, D-Twitch, told reporters today, if it was up to me, there would be articles on the floor quite quickly. Johnson plans on Tuesday to introduce a resolution censuring the president, saying the call is a violation of the state and federal law. Representative Henry Queller told Axios it was borderline criminal, but there's not enough time for an impeachment hearing. We're not happy, but we'll leave it to other officials, he said. Representative Tim Ryan said if any other president would be impeached, but we've got the virus and public health to take care of. Representative Hakeem Jeffries, head of the House Democratic Caucus, said, we're not looking backwards, we're looking forwards. That would be the perfect ending to this reality show, at least the season. All right, let's keep going. From the BBC. COVID. New lockdowns for England and Scotland ahead of hardest weeks. No author given. All schools and colleges will close to most pupils and switch to remote learning on Tuesday. Boris Johnson warned the coming weeks would be the hardest yet amid surging cases and patient numbers. He said those in top 4 priority groups would be offered a first vaccine dose by the middle of next month. All care home residents and their carers, everyone aged 70 and over, all frontline health and social care workers, and the clinically extremely vulnerable, will be offered 1 dose of the vaccine by mid-February. Scotland issued a stay-at-home order, and Wales said schools and colleges would shut until 18th January for most pupils. Schools in Northern Ireland will have an extended period of remote learning, the Stormont executive said. schools to close and exams facing axe in England. Speaking from Downing Street, Mr. Johnson told the public to follow the new lockdown rules immediately before they became law in the early hours of Wednesday. All the new measures in England will then last until at least the middle of February, he said, as more infection variants of the virus spreads across the UK. The PM added that he believes the country was entering the last phase of the struggle. Hospitals were under more pressure from COVID than at any time since the start of the pandemic, he said. And he reiterated the slogan used earlier in the pandemic, urging people to immediately stay at home, protect the NHS, and save lives. So they're going back into a lockdown here. From NBC4 out of New York, Cuomo confirms first case of new, more contagious UK strain of the virus in New York. From Brian Price. A man in his 60s living in upstate New York has tested positive for the UK strain of the coronavirus known as B117. Governor Andrew Cuomo announced in a press call on Monday afternoon the Saratoga County man had not traveled recently, leading state officials to believe he got the virus through community spread, Cuomo said. He was symptomatic, but he is on the mend and he's doing better, Cuomo added. The governor says the man is linked to a jewelry store in Saratoga Springs. He advised anyone who had contact with Fox News jewelers at 404 Broadway between December 18th and 24th to get tested immediately. The store has been closed since December of 24th. State health officials are already aware of at least 3 other people sick with COVID-19 connected to the store, but they have yet to be confirmed for the new variant, Cuomo said. The test samples from each will be examined for the virus, and contact tracing out from the jewelry store is already underway. Yeah, if they try to serve me with a contact tracing form, Rusty Shackelford. At least 3 other states have recently confirmed the presence of the new virus: Colorado, California, and Florida. Interestingly, right in time for the vaccine to be suddenly ineffective. This is all a fucking play, people. The first U.S. case of the UK virus was detected by health officials in Colorado at the end of November in a man in his 20s who also had no recent travel history. Okay, it's not a UK virus. It's a China virus. China sent it over. Some people call it the Kung flu. Okay. Let's keep going. Got just a couple more here, then we'll do Twitter trending and head on out of here for the day. From KCRA3 NBC, Governor Newsom wants dentists to help with COVID vaccinations, says pace is not good enough. From KCRA staff via the Associated Press. Governor Devin Newsom said Monday that the state is looking to enlist dentists, pharmacy techs, members of the National Guard, and others to help speed up the pace of COVID-19 vaccinations, which has fallen short of the goal. Nearly 1.3 million doses of the vaccine have been received so far, with another 611,500 to be shipped to the state, Newsom said. Just 454,306 doses of the vaccine have been administered in California as of Sunday. Newsom previously said the state planned to administer 2 million doses by the end of 2020. Excuse me. Not good enough. We recognize that, the governor said on Monday. He said he would submit a budget this week that calls for $300 million towards the vaccine effort and was talking to other governors about the best practices. The California Dental Association said it welcomed the call for dentists to help administer vaccines and noted that the Department of Consumer Affairs on Monday approved a waiver to allow them to do so. Do you think Herbie the Elf is going to be among the people that are administering the vaccine? Or has he resigned himself to making toys? Dentists are ready, willing to go, and able to help administer the COVID-19 vaccines to the public. CDA President Herbie the Elf, no, that's Judy Tippett White, said in a release. We can help with surge capacity at clinics and vaccination sites, wherever they're needed, to quickly administer vaccinations and save lives, and we will make sure to give toys to the good little boys and girls. Meanwhile, a community advisor committee is set up to discuss Wednesday the next phase of the vaccine's rollout. The ADA called for dentists to be moved up in priority for who gets vaccinated first. Newsom was giving an update on California's response to the coronavirus pandemic, as the death toll in the state has topped 26,500 and confirmed cases near 2.4 million. What do I always say when they give me a death tally? Citation needed, please. The state's swamped hospitals held more than 22,000 COVID-19 patients, including nearly 4,700 in intensive care units, the Department of Public Health said on Monday. Newsom cited a modest growth rate in hospitalizations over the past 2 weeks, 18%, ahead of what he said would be a coming surge on top of a surge in the coming days due to travel and gatherings for December holidays and New Year's. Yeah, they're going to keep trying to fucking drill that bullshit down your throat of the fact that you went and visited your parents for Christmas and you are responsible for all of the world's ills because of COVID-19. If you had just stayed locked in your home and begged the government for money, we would all be fine and we'd all be out of this. But you had to be a social creature, and you will be punished. Let's keep going. From the Daily Wire, Governor Ron DeSantis smacks CNN reporter, "Did you investigate before you asked your loaded question?" From Ryan Saavedra. A CNN reporter was met with strong response on Monday when she asked Ron DeSantis what has gone wrong with the vaccine rollout in his state. The sparring occurred after DeSantis warned hospitals would have their supply of vaccines redirected to other hospitals if they did not quickly enough give the vaccines to patients. Given the chance to ask the governor a question, CNN correspondent Rosa Flores asked, "Governor, what has gone wrong with the rollout of the vaccine that we've seen phone lines jammed, websites crashing, and seniors waiting overnight for the vaccine?" The governor responded by calling out Flores for asking a loaded question and asked her if she had done her due diligence before formulating the query. The governor then made clear where the responsibility for the hospital rollouts fell. Let me see if there's video of this, because I don't want to read the transcript if I don't have to. Yep, there it is. Let's have a listen.
It was a very simple question. Why? What has gone wrong? But Governor Ron DeSantis wouldn't even let me finish asking my question. Take a listen.
Governor, what has gone wrong with the rollout of the vaccine that we've seen phone lines jammed, websites crashing?
There's a lot of demand. I mean, I think at the end of the day, excuse me.
If I could finish my question.
You just said what has gone wrong, so I'm answering the question.
If I could complete the question, though.
So you're going to give a speech, or you're going to ask a question?
With all due respect, Governor,
you asked the question. I'm going to answer it.
I'm trying to finish my question.
No, you're giving a speech. You asked the question.
I am trying to ask you the.
You're going to ask how many questions? You get 3? They only got 1 question. Why do you get 3?
With all due respect, Governor, I'm just asking if I could finish my question.
You didn't. You finished the question.
I did not. My full question is, what went wrong with the rollout of the vaccine when we've seen phone lines jammed, websites crashing?
So you're repeating your question.
To complete it for you, Governor, we've seen websites crash and also senior citizens waiting overnight for the vaccine.
Where was that at?
We've seen it in Duval, Broward, Orange, and Lee counties.
And why was, like in Lee, why did that happen? Did you investigate why?
That's my question to you, Governor. You're the governor of the state. I'm not the governor of the state.
Okay, but you didn't investigate why that happened, like in Lee County. Why was there a big line? Did you investigate why?
Could you tell us why?
Because we distributed vaccine to hospitals, and the hospital said, first come, first serve. If you show up, we'll do it. So they didn't use a registration system. There wasn't anything that was done, and there's a lot of demand for it. So people are going to want to go ahead and get it.
So are you saying there was no plan then from the state to make sure that senior citizens didn't wait outside overnight?
So the state is not dictating to hospitals we're not dictating to Carlos Magoya how he runs his operations here. That would be a total disaster. These guys are much more competent to be able to deliver healthcare services than a state government could ever be.
Based. Totally fucking based. And he's right. He is in charge of getting the vaccine to his state and getting it distributed around. What they do with it once it's distributed, that's on them. And if they fail, then, as was mentioned earlier in the article, he'll take it back and give it to somebody who's going to do it competently. So definitely something to watch for that. All right, let's keep going. I got What do we got? 4 more. From ABC 7, California funeral homes run out of space as pandemic rages. As communities across the country feel the pain of a surge in coronavirus cases, funeral homes in the hotspot of Southern California say they must turn away grieving families as they run out of space for bodies piling up. The head of the State Funeral Directors Association says mortuaries are being inundated as the U.S. nears a grim tally of 350,000 COVID-19 deaths. More than 20 million people in the country have been infected, according to data compiled by Johns Hopkins. I've been in the funeral industry for 40 years, and I've never in my life did I think that this could happen, that I had to tell a family, no, we can't take your family member, said Magda Maldonado, owner of Continental Funeral Homes in Los Angeles. Continental is averaging about 30 body removals a day, 6 times its normal rate. Mortuary owners are calling one another to see whether anyone can handle the overflow. The answer is always the same. They're full too. In order to keep with the flood of bodies, Maldonado has rented an extra 50-foot refrigerator for 2 of the 4 facilities she runs in LA, surrounding counties. Continental has also been delaying pickups at hospitals for a day or two while they deal with the residential clients. Bob Ackerman, executive director of the California Funeral Directors Association, said the whole process of burying and cremating bodies has slowed down, including embalming bodies and obtaining death certificates. During normal times, cremation might happen within a day or two. Now it takes at least a week longer. Why? Why does it take a week longer? You might ask. Because that's going to be the question that I have for this. Why is it taking a week longer? And why are we wondering why bodies are piling up? Because, you know what? I'm telling you right now, this might be part of the reason that your bodies are piling up, that you're taking too long to do this. You're taking too long to do your job. And under a normal time, you were doing this in a day or two. Now, I still need a citation as to how they're loading up bodies like they are in Southern California. I don't believe any of this. We come back after Christmas. The only place that's getting hit like this is the place that keeps you locked down, says that you are not allowed to keep as many people in your private property as you like. The state that says that if you go outside without a mask, you will go into prison for the next 75 years of your life. The state that is on the cusp of welding you inside of your home is the one that's seeing the hotspot like this. And we're not seeing it anywhere else around the country. A little bit in Illinois. But that's because I know somebody on the inside. But other than that, we're not seeing this across the rest of the country. So, we will see what happens off of this. But, yeah, I think that if you're waiting a week or longer, you're having some sort of other issue that's causing you to be backed up like this. Let's keep going. From the New York Post. Arrogance. De Blasio slams Cuomo's vaccine rollout. Fine threat from Nolan Hicks and Aaron Feist and Kenneth Garger. Mayor Bill de Blasio on Monday slammed Governor Andrew Cuomo's plan to fine hospitals as a means of speeding up the state's highly criticized slow vaccine rollout. That's just arrogance, de Blasio said in an interview with New York One's Errol Lewis of Cuomo's claims that the monetary penalties could speed up the process. His owner went on to defend the city's healthcare workers and told Cuomo to lay off the threats. Does he think that the healthcare professionals are uninterested in vaccinating people? How about trusting the people who have been our heroes, de Blasio said. Help them, support them, don't fine them, don't threaten them, respect them, and help them. This comes as de Blasio was on Times Square on a private ceremony for the New Year's Eve celebration, dancing with his wife to New York, New York, while he told other people that they couldn't be down there. Cuomo earlier Monday deflected blame on the state's sluggish inoculation efforts, which has seen large quantities of the vaccine supply unused to local leaders, including de Blasio. The governor also specifically argued that the Big Apple city-run health and hospital system have not carried their weight. De Blasio said on Monday night that instead of issuing threats, the state should implement new rules to foster vaccine delivery. We need rules that maximize the pace, that help us speed up and reach the people who are available, who are a priority, and who are willing and ready and able. It's common sense, the mayor said. So the state can help us there. Stop threatening people. The State Department of Health on Sunday sent a letter establishing a use it or lose it position. Cuomo said requiring providers to use the supplies they've thus far been allocated by week's end or face fines of up to $100,000. Moving forward, they must use all vaccines within 7 days of receipt or face fines, and risk being cut off from future shipments of the vaccine. Public and private hospitals statewide have used only about 46% of the coronavirus vaccines they've been provided, according to stats Cuomo cited on Monday. I have questions. Question. People, pick me. If there's so much demand for this, why are they sitting on 54% of their coronavirus vaccine if there's so much demand? I mean, in Florida, they're lining up outside the building in order to make sure they get it. Why aren't they doing the same in New York? In New York City itself is almost as populous as the state of Florida, from what I understand. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I know that there's a bunch of people in New York City and a lot of spread out area in Florida. So yes, I have questions. I have lots of questions here. How is this happening? Do the people know that there's plenty of supply? Can they go and get their supply? I don't know. And maybe you should be finding people for, especially if they're sitting on it or trying to hold on to it for whatever reason, or specifically metering out to make sure that they have enough for a long term. If they're doing that, then yeah, maybe they should get a fine. Because I'm sure that there are a bunch of people in New York City that want it. I don't want it, but I'm sure that there are a bunch of progressives in here that say, please, daddy government, please give me the vaccine that I need. Please. And then I'll sit in lockdown anyway still, but I'll get the vaccine. Please, daddy government, tell me what to do. All right, let's keep going. From CNN. Maybe. I think my browser just locked up. There it went. New York's governor wants to make it a crime to sell or administer COVID-19 vaccines to people trying to skip the line. From Harmeet Kaur. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo wants to make it a crime to sell or administer the COVID-19 vaccine to anyone trying to skip ahead in the line. The governor said in a news conference on Monday that any entity misrepresenting who they are or distributing the vaccine to those who aren't yet eligible should lose their license and face criminal penalties. Or maybe you should just do a first come, first serve basis. So then there is no skipping the line. And I've had this discussion too. I mean, most places around me, most places around the country say that we're prioritizing the elderly, the healthcare workers, this group, that group. Straight, white, cisgender male right here, who's relatively healthy, is so far to the back of the line, I might as well not even get the goddamn thing. Did I lose the stream? Are we still up? 1, 2, 1, 2. Says I didn't drop any frames. Says I'm still going. And then we had a little bit of a lockup on it, so that might have cut things down. Let's keep going, though. Cuomo added that he plans to propose a bill criminalizing such activity when lawmakers convene for the 2021 legislative session on January 6th. This vaccine can be like gold to some people. And I know about gold, okay? Because I know the orange zone. Do you know the orange zone? Read the description, okay? And if there's any fraud in the distribution, you're letting people ahead of other people, or friends and family, or they're selling the vaccine, you'll lose your license. And I'm going to put you in the fucking red zone, okay? Read the sign. You know how this works. But I do believe it should be criminal, and I'm going to propose a law to that effect. That's what I have to say to that. You tyrant. It's always the Democrat governors, too. You notice that? They're the tyrannical ones. I will tell you what you can put in your body and when. No thanks, Andy. All right, last one. Then we'll do Twitter trending for the day. From the Blaze. Cosmopolitan magazine hit with fierce backlash over covers praising obesity despite the coronavirus risk. Wokeness at its worst. From Carlos Garcia. Cosmo faced fierce online backlash and mockery for its latest cover that dabbled in body positivity during a global pandemic where obesity has been identified as a high-risk precondition. The fashion and entertainment magazine geared towards women highlighted an article touting 11 women on why wellness doesn't have to be one size fits all on its cover for the February issue. The article interviews several women who have been advocates for body positivity. Body shaming was one of the first things that I learned to do. I grew up in a community where all of my physical attributes, wide nose, big belly, big ass, big lips, dark skin, were deemed ugly, says Jessamine Stanley, a yoga teacher. I've had to accept that that's how the mainstream sees me, and not try to change. For me, that's been very therapeutic. The article also includes stories from a woman who had to deal with body issues stemming from an accident that left her in a wheelchair permanently, a woman with a genetic condition that causes dwarfism, and others unrelated to weight issues. Well, the one with the dwarfism, that's really not your fault, and there's nothing you can really do to change that. Many on social media found the article to be problematic, given how obesity has been identified as a high-risk precondition for complications from the coronavirus pandemic. The CDC calls obesity a common, serious, and costly chronic disease, and identifies it as a precondition that increases the risk of serious illness from the coronavirus. A very irresponsible PR stunt in the middle of a public health crisis, tweeted one Twitter user. I'm kind of waiting to see if I see anybody that I know tweeting out on this. We know diabetes puts people at more risk of COVID, and obesity is the main cause of contracted diabetes in the world. Wokeness at its worst, she added. Tone deaf and extremely ignorant, he added. Supporters of the body positivity movement, however, were outraged at the criticism of the larger-sized women. Of course they were. Damn, people are big mad about the Cosmo cover. Big mad. They're literally foaming at the mouth. 2021? Let's have more fat women on the front covers of magazine. Please, keep going, tweeted Stephanie Yeboah, a body image activist. So, I'm going to go out and level here. I am generally a fan of more voluptuous women, more full-figured women, and sometimes that does cross into the threshold of large women. I'm not a specific size advocate, but I understand. You know, sometimes you don't get the same hips out of a rail-thin woman as you get out of a girl that's got some meat on her bones. But I'm not going to come out and pretend that obesity, even if I'm attracted to the curves, I'm not going to pretend that being 300 pounds is healthy for anybody. There's a give and take that goes along with that. And most of the girls that I've gone out with that have fallen into that category have been actively trying to live a healthier lifestyle too. So, I mean, the people that are advocating for this are coming out and looking to figure out how can I get fatter? The people who are railing back against the people who are calling this out. The body positivity activists who are coming out and saying, why can't we have more fat women on the cover? They're out there trying to get fatter. Meanwhile, there are also people out there that recognize that there are problems that go along with this and trying to do something different about it. There is a give and take that goes along with this. But for the most part, given how entrenched the body positivity movement has come into our society, as the people come out and call this out for being promoting of obesity, I'm just going to sit back on Twitter with a bucket of popcorn and watch the fireworks. Because from what I've seen over the last 24 hours, it's fucking hilarious. All right, and that is going to be it for the news. And the last thing that we do on a Tuesday is Twitter trending. So let's let my Twitter load back up here. And then we will see what's going on with that. So over to the Explore page. On trending. Number 1 in politics trending today. Vote Warnock, Ossoff today. I don't think we need to go into that one. We know what's going on with that. A bunch of lefties came out and tried to make this the top trend. We skipped the Tuesday vibe and the Tuesday thoughts one, so the next one here is going to be Carson. Let's see why Carson is trending for number 2. Carson seems to be trending today. Oh boy, I can't wait to see what wacky stuff my favorite creator did today. Me and my homies, after reading the same I wonder why Carson's trending joke for the 9,583rd time. Weird people on Discord. I'm a right Carson. Every YouTuber it turns out to be a groomer. So Carson Wentz, maybe? I don't know what's going on with this. I don't know who Carson is. Let's see. Here's my statement on Carson. I was made aware of Carson's actions the day before it went public. When he was trending, I messaged him letting him know, and the first thing he told me was, it's a long story. I sexted a couple girls that were 17 and I was 19. He said it so casually, and immediately it was downplayed as some incident that happened in the past, and that was it. I was told this happened in his early growth as a content creator, and he apologized to both girls and solved these issues privately. I now know this wasn't true, as it happened during SMP Live, and he did nothing formally to deal with it at the time. So, I have no idea what's happening here, but apparently some dude was diddling little kids. And I don't know who he is. Alright, next one is DeSantis. This is, look at me. I'm Jim Acosta. Look over here, look at me. Calling out Ron DeSantis for the exchange that we just saw. Alright, let's keep going. From, well, this will be number 4. Our Masterpiece JB Day. This looks to be some K-pop stuff. Or J-pop stuff. Or, no, it's K-pop. Trending at number 1 and number 2. Keep showering our leader with your love and greetings. Our Masterpiece JB Day. I guess happy birthday to GOT7, and I got GOT7's best leader and friend. We love you, Lim. J-Beam. I know what most of those words mean, individually, but I don't know what they mean together. Alright. And the last one. Oh, they moved it again. Last one is going to be Election Day because Georgia Senate runoffs are happening right now. And I'm sure we'll be talking more about this tomorrow as Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue start out ahead by a very vast margin. And then all of a sudden, tonight at 2 o'clock in the morning, Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff pull into a massive veto-proof lead. Are you calling it now? Because I'm calling it now. That's going to be it, though, for the Twitter trending today. We're going to head on out of here. We will be back here tomorrow to discuss the runoff election, everything that happened there, and everything else that happened throughout the day. And I do hope to come back and see you guys again tomorrow for more Contemporary. We do this every morning, 7:45 a.m., unless I'm having microphone issues, which I was having this morning. And then it turns out to be 7:57, but we are here every weekday morning. Come back and check us out. We'll be back here tomorrow. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.